Hey, hello everybody. You made it to Halo Love and Country. Richard Gayton here with Mitch McDonald. Today I thought, we sort of started out, Mitch and I were talking about it a little bit before the podcast. The original idea was whether impeachment is a solution to some of the situation we have going on in America today. Um, I'm reading Caro's biographies. These four 1,000-page tomes on Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was, and we will get to that a little bit more too, was fascinatingly turned out to have quite a progressive approach, Franklin Delano Roosevelt approach to politics, but really came to that very, very late. He presented himself that way, but he was kind of a Southern conservative in many ways early in his political life. Mitch was talking to me beforehand and really talking about the political situation in Arkansas, and he could talk, maybe you could talk about that, and as kind of a maybe instructive about what's going on in the rest of America, in many parts and many situations. But Mitch, what do you think? Can you do that?
We're in this weird spot where I think we are, our current governor is Sanders, Trump's former,
Was she a
oh,
press
the
secretary?
person that stands at the podium and lies to you.
Press secretary.
Thank you. Trump's
Yeah.
former, our current governor is Trump's former press secretary. And she is little more than a hot mess. She has nothing going for her except her father was governor, one governor before her, and so she had a name here. And then she got a further name because she worked for President Trump, and then she rode that into office here. And she is now at a spot where, because people are looking down on Trump, people are looking down on her.
Hmm.
And this is not a purple state by any stretch of the imagination. It is violently red. And and even with that, people are tiring of her. People are understanding that she is making decisions that are not in the best interest of the state, and that's coming from education. She is happily in lockstep with that McMahon woman, the wrestling executive that they put in charge of the Department of Education. She was following Trump's lead and McMahon's leads on educational changes long before they were even official policy. She was leaning in that direction, moving money towards private schools and changing the justifications and the supports for our standardized testing and moving funds away from English as a second language and special education and all the tools necessary to make those things work. And then financially, go ahead.
Yeah. How is it? Because that's where the rubber meets the road here in this soup. Okay, this soup that is our country has kind of. I was going to throw some of the chunks of the soup in there are kind of a type of Christianity, a sort of a deism, slavery, more lately incarceration, high-minded idealism.
No, none of that. There's none of that in a conservative state. There's no high mind to have an ideal from. It's all very low. It's all very basic.
Well, let's stay with economically. How is Sanders and Trumpism helping or not you as a person in Arkansas under Governor Sanders and all of this? How
Okay,
is
so
that for you?
technically, she is a very pro-business governor, but her version of pro-business ends up meaning pro-corporate more than it means anything else. The average business person particularly the average farmer, is failing under her policies. Unemployment is high because businesses are failing and are, especially under Trump's policies, are losing their ability to maintain staffing. We're up roughly, we have moved out of 3% and change unemployment to 4% and change unemployment here. My day job is in education. For my people, the employment side of it is that because Trump is taking away the professional qualification that comes with being a teacher or in education anywhere, people are losing their opportunities at having their loans forgiven. People are losing their opportunities just to get the education involved in being a teacher. And our jobs are becoming unnecessary because the federal funding that holds a lot of education up is being taken away by Trump's policies. And these are, again, the same policies that Sanders favors. So, like in my case, special education, the funding that holds up special education is very much in question. They have not known at any point in the last 2 years whether or not we would have the funds to have people in my position, English as a second language, the support equipment. They have not known whether or not they would have enough money to have those things. And our school system have done a fairly good job of fighting to keep money in place. I give a fair amount of credit on that to our unions. But
Well, how about financially? Let's say a single person or a small family group wanted to buy a house,
well,
and
they're fine.
and why is that?
Because with the current housing bubble,
I mean, haven't you had enough of the American soup? Didn't
well,
you?
you have to have the soup is on a stove in a house, and the houses are, you can't have the rock soup where the community comes together and everybody puts in a little something. You can't have that rock soup where everybody doesn't have a stove and everybody doesn't even have materials to add to the pot.
Okay, I want to suggest that there's a progressive meat in the soup here that is a possibility for. Okay, but talk to me. Tell me about what it's like trying to get a house in Arkansas. I mean, I'm in California. I'm thinking, God, it's hell here. I know for middle class, upper middle class folks to buy a house in California, anywhere in any metropolitan area. But the conventional wisdom, we'll go to Arkansas. And you can easily buy a house, no problem.
And you can. Like, for instance, let's just ballpark. You're a property owner. You have more than one property. So without saying what any one of your properties is or how many of them there are, ballpark for me the value. Like, if you averaged everything you have together, what would the value be?
Of the properties.
Yeah, if you averaged all
Or
properties
one property.
together.
Well, let's talk about one house.
Well, I don't want to put it. Okay, if you can pick a house, just give me a value on one piece of property that you own. Let's do that then.
It probably $1.3 million.
Okay, perfect. Stop right there. $1.3 million. You sell that house for $1.3 million. As a matter of fact, fuck it, you take a loss because you're in a hurry. You take $1.1 million. For $1.1 million on a property that's how big? What would you say? It sits on
It's probably on a sixth of an acre, and it's 2,100 square feet.
Okay, a sixth of an acre and 2,100 square feet. You could buy 5 of those in Arkansas with that money. You could buy 5 of those, maybe 6 in Arkansas. If you took that money and you came to Arkansas, you could buy yourself a 3,000 or 4,000 square foot house on almost an acre.
Okay, so no problem.
For
No
you,
problem.
for you.
Yeah,
Okay, but
you've
here's the
gone to
problem.
Arkansas. You're a middle class person. You're employed.
No, 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 no,
Um,
no, 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 no. You're middle class in California coming to Arkansas. That isn't what's happening here. Here,
yes.
you are making, like, okay, let's say what they're actually doing is they're buying houses at what their value should be, or in the ballpark of what their value should be, which is, let's say, $150,000, $120,000. And then they're doing a makeover for another $30,000 to $60,000. And then they're selling it to people in California who want to come here for $250,000, $300,000.
Oh, it seems like such a deal.
Well, but it is. It's a deal to the people in California. And now you have done two things. You have jacked up the price of every house nearby, and you have made it so that the people who just came here from California will never get their money back on that house. Because one of the big things that you see is the people from California are buying the house sight unseen. They didn't fly out here, look at the house, and then think, you know what? I want to spend the rest of my life in that house. They look at a bunch of pictures on the internet and they go, that looks solid. They don't realize that they're buying a house across the street from a burned out shell. They don't realize that there are two drug houses on their block. They don't realize that the average house on their street is only worth $100,000, $120,000. They don't realize that there's not a grocery store anywhere near their house. They don't realize that the average person around them is only making $28,000 a year less,
Okay.
and sometimes that 28 to 35 is two people working their asses off.
So
Go ahead.
I, obviously, I need to move there. But what? So, but
We can
there
use-
you are. You're working in education. The people that you care about that might do this with you are working. They have some source of income. Why can't you buy one of those houses?
I can't because my credit union, the teachers' credit union, does not give money for houses.
Huh?
They would give me money for a car. They would not give me money for a house. And but there are other credit unions I could go to. There are other options.
Yeah.
But again, we walk straight into the face of you're buying. The cost of that house is going to be elevated. You're going to be paying a lot more money for that house, and the rent and the mortgage is likely to end up being higher than rent, which is
Yeah. A good
it's leaning
question
into
is,
being a lose-lose.
can you
lose-lose.
afford it?
Um,
Let's say if you could get a loan, is
I
that
could not
really
get a
going to
loan for
work?
anything worth having. I could not get
Okay.
if I could get a loan for $100,000 home, it would be too small to be worth having. It would be too close to a floodplain. It would be in a neighborhood that is in decline. It would be in a part of the city that the city itself does not consider to be important anymore. So yes, I could get a home, but I couldn't get a home I'd want. I couldn't get a home that I could grow and feel like over time I was getting something for the money I was putting in. And with the bubble on the edge of bursting, that again, it's another thing people don't seem to want to acknowledge or accept. If I pay full value for a home right now, I'm right on the edge of, I mean, what did we lose the last time this came around? The housing market lost a third of its value. It was a chunk. So let's say I can get a loan for $150,000. Well, bam, the house drops down to being worth $100,000. I'm into it I've agreed to a loan that I'll be underwater on that loan for maybe a decade. And that assumes that this area somehow begins to grow again. And that
And
requires both the state and the city to get a clue on how to turn this, excuse me, on how to turn this area into a bedroom community that will attract people who want to live here, because we have lost our industrial base. And as I said, if Sanders wants to be a business governor, but every decision she makes is undermining the ability of people to start businesses here. So,
especially
people
small businesses, right?
small business. Yeah, I mean, she's
And then
happy to sell the entire state to any corporation that will strip mine it. She lives for that. She
and the
lives
farming and the
and
farming
farms are
community is
crash
failing.
and burn, dying more every day.
Okay, so the issue is somewhat different in California. It's just it's on a different scale. It's like there's I don't know how the Central Valley farmers are doing. I suspect they're having trouble with the tariffs and the lack. I don't know. I'm not sure how. We don't have a lot of soybeans in California and rice. Which is I know rice is such a big thing in Arkansas. But if we go, there's an unrest in the country right now economically. There's an unrest because farm in the places that the Republicans and Trump have been strongest, farmers are having trouble, and they're definitely having trouble in Arkansas. I didn't know how much trouble. They're having some trouble here in California. People are just basically having trouble buying houses all over the country. Some can, especially if their family steps in and if there's generational wealth that could be passed on, it's
Right.
much easier. But for whatever reason, it ain't happening. The housing market is basically, it's like stuck. People, many people are not selling. Many people are not buying because they can't. Now, if we go back, so the economy's beginning to get stuck in some ways. I mean, it's not stuck in other ways. I mean, we've got AI centers being dropped in the middle. I'm surprised Sanders hasn't brought in a huge AI center and dropped
She
it in
is.
the middle of Fort. Oh, she is there.
Yeah, she has already greenlit the entire concept of them. They are moving into communities. They are busily lying about the resources that they need and the damage that is likely to be done to the watersheds and to the land in general. Realistically, on just that front, we're actually moving ourselves busily back towards a dust bowl. This part of the country is going to lose its water. Okay, so it's a two-part problem. In general, not just because of data centers. In general, this is the part of the country that is going to become the new breadbasket because of the way our environmental systems are shifting. It's going to get drier and drier everywhere in the middle and everywhere north of us, everywhere south of us. Like the coasts are going to be okay as soon as they figure out how to desalinate. The coasts are going to be okay. But everywhere that's currently dry is going to get drier. Everywhere that's kind of okay is going to become dry, and it's going to squeeze down into just this section in the middle, which is really going to have two impacts. Everybody's going to want to move here. They're already doing it, and it's going to be a strain on the resources. The downside of that is going to be that once these data centers hit, our water resources are done. These data centers are going to suck dry or contaminate every aquifer. The stuff that's not going to be damaged by salination as the ocean levels rise is going to be ruined by the data centers as they contaminate and dump because they're being given permission to dump contaminated water, much the same way that like fracking fluid has been allowed to just be dumped into water sources. So no one's going to be in a great condition. Everything's going to start dying off, and we're going to end up in a new dust bowl. Uh, and
Which
the
is a great segue. Okay. So,
okay,
so during the Great Depression, which most of us were not alive for, we had the Dust Bowl, which was the Midwest dried out and the topsoil blew away in the wind and farmers lost everything. But the primary wealth was held by very rich folks. And then we had a lot of monopolies, and we had government, which was for the rich, by the rich. Um, we had the Herbert Hoovers of the world who watched as the world economy and particularly the American economy went under. And we had 25% unemployment. It was just a case where government and politics no longer served the vast majority of the American public. It was beginning to fail. And Herbert Hoover did nothing. He thought business would rescue that. And we're not in the same situation now, but we're in a situation where a large majority of American people are unsatisfied with the economic situation in America. Now, another little, as we came out of that, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected more on hope than anything else. He had a somewhat of a progressive agenda, but he was just willing to try new things. And progressivism in America, at least for FDR, was the willingness to experiment, and some of his things failed. Some of the things he did didn't work. But we were in a terrible depression at that time, and people were literally starving, or there were bread lines, and people were fed at back porches. People wandered the country looking for work. People died of starvation. Children did. All of that happened in America in the 1920s and 30s, and FDR, he was the hope that was going to change that, and he gradually did. It wasn't dramatic, but what his approach was that government can work for the people.
Yes.
And they had already seen that government also absolutely cannot work sometimes. It won't work. And it's in the hands of the people whether to make it work, and that people voted for FDR. They put him in there, they said, we're going to give him a try. Well, I think what we're talking about is the situation in American democracy right now, where people are feeling some buyer's remorse, and particularly financially, because that was their hope, is that Trump would make them enter. And I have a friend who's a very strong Trump supporter. I'm not sure how much he likes me anymore, but he said when Trump was inaugurated, he said, we're going to have a golden age. And I know what he meant by that. We were going to have this amazing prosperity that would lift us all up. Everybody would get more, and that's the American dream. We're from the lowest level of economics to the higher. Everybody's going to get so much more, and the rising tide will lift all boats. And he was going to be the rising tide. And what's happened instead is we can see that the rich have gotten richer. The AI data centers and all of the stocks prices. Now, especially some upper middle and upper middle class people with 401ks have benefited from the stocks. But everybody else below that have suffered. Or at least their issues have not been addressed. And now we see the constituencies that voted for this are hurting. Well, I mean, I used to watch the DJT Donald Trump media stock. And I think it's lost about, 90% of its value off the high, something like that. So that means whoever owned that stock from the high has lost just about all their money. Then there was the one that Trump has made the big bucks on, are $1.5 billion on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has lost a lot of its value, particularly the coins that he sold have no value essentially.
Yeah, there was one that went basically to zero. There's another that's lost 30 to 40%. Everything, all of his stuff is in decline, which is the standard for all of his business.
Yeah,
Nothing that he actually has his hands in lasts.
he was going to build this Atlantic City empire of casinos, and it all went bust. He started a university that scammed people out lots of money, and blah, it went bust. That's his thing. He takes people's money and runs, and he's happy. He doesn't bother him at all doing that. Um, but now we have Arkansas farmers. These are his constituencies, and we have soybean particularly, and I don't know about wheat farmers across the country. How are they doing? Not so good. Um, because they can't, because one of the reasons American agriculture has done so well is because of foreign markets, because we
Yes.
have been able, we can produce these huge tonnages of food, and particularly to China, who loves soybeans, who uses it for their everyday staples, and they don't grow it very well in China. So now, and farmers, many of them were upper middle class people. They owned land and they were making money, and now it's getting worse for them.
Right.
So we've
So
got
I mean,
these.
and part of what you were saying there, they were his constituency. They were the people. The farmers were among the loudest speaking about Trump rising and bringing the country up with him. About his rise heralding that better day, and in the end, all he did was destroy their markets and then sell their market share to other countries so that they couldn't get it back. That's
Which was totally predictable. This is what he does best. He ruins businesses and moves on to new people to grift and to make promises to that he can't keep, won't keep, doesn't. He's not really competent. He really doesn't have the competence of a business person. Because some people are really good at businesses and some are not. And he's
right.
not really. He's not really good at it. Um, but what he is good is influencing people to do things that seem obviously, if you used a lot of thought and investigation, would find out that he doesn't keep his promises. So why would you invest with him before? Again, when I was, yeah.
I would say it's worse than that. I would say it's worse than that. Lindsey Graham and J.D. Vance are just two of the most, Marco Rubio, three of the most obvious cases. But people who he openly and blatantly abused, who openly and blatantly reviled him, and then somehow, after he became president, he spun them. And now they're in his corner fighting for the things that he wants, despite the fact that they said he was incompetent, incapable, immoral, inept.
Hmm.
And now everything they have to say about him is in glowing terms. He suddenly became the right man for the job. I don't know how he could possibly have gotten that much blackmail material on them. I just don't know. And for me, it's not even just that it's not the reality around them. It's that it is against the society that they live in. It's against the Constitution, the way they are working to gain this power. And really the worst part of it is how hard it is to remove them. Like, I was one of those people who was under the impression that if you impeach the president, you were effectively removing his administration. So that if we successfully impeach Trump, we removed his entire cabinet, and new people would have to be picked. Someone in the Republican Party would be moved up. I'm not even sure how I thought it worked for years and years and years. But, when it comes down to it, that is not how it works. You impeach Trump. If you were able to do that, you would only be removing Trump. His entire cabinet would stay in place and continue wreaking the havoc that they're wreaking. And you'd have to walk through one position at a time, removing people from his cabinet and from positions of control. Which is just, I don't know if I
And
consider
who
that
would
to
we
be a
have as president? Yeah.
Well, no, you would, and so you would effectively, by removing everybody from his cabinet. I guess you only go like four into the cabinet before you get to the Speaker of the House. So it would be Mike Johnson, and then Mike Johnson would have to choose a vice president and a cabinet. And it really feels like that would be more of a Mike Johnson would get elevated, and then people would start making noises about we need to hold another election.
Well, but we would get J.D. Vance first.
Oh, well, no. I'm saying if you took the entire cabinet out, I think.
Okay, if you got everybody, if you got J.D. Vance and yeah,
the first
and you're not
person
going
after,
to.
Yes.
No.
Yeah, the first non-cabinet position would be the Speaker of the House, I think. So yeah, it's the idea that we can force a more moral government into play that's a non-starter too. There is no.
Yeah, well, it's kind of tempting. Well, we have a problem. We've got a criminal president who's to me doing lots of impeachable things. Mainly the whole enriching himself through bribery and fraud and all sorts of other stuff. We remove him, we get J.D. Vance, but I don't know. Maybe J.D. Vance's moral center is so fluid that if he read I'm being hopeful here, that he might read the political situation and see that these people he said he cares about were getting screwed. The farmers, people that can't own houses, soldiers, from my point of view, are being screwed. Veterans' benefits are being reduced. People are being killed in a war that tiny minority of Americans want. He might be better. I don't know. I kept thinking, no, he's just immoral in a different sort of way than he switches. He keeps moving.
He's immoral because
I think he means it. I think he really does. I believe his Christianity, for instance. But I also believe he could just as quick do something else. Something a little completely different if he wanted to. But let's say we really don't know. That's the problem. You're kind of rolling the dice if you get rid of Trump. And how often in American history have we been able to remove people that we thought were criminals or were doing high crime? And that's the standard is high crimes and misdemeanors. That's the standard.
Right, and he is, and that's the other side of that. The idea that the high crimes and the high crimes he is currently committing are blatant. So how is there so much issue with getting the Republicans to look it in the face, give it a name, and act on it? The fact that they are unwilling to do that is terrifying, because it's like you don't have to lose your job when you point out that he's doing his badly. If anything, it would elevate them. We as Republicans recognize that the man we stood up to be president of the United States is more than just flawed. He is immoral and criminal. He must be cast down, and new leadership must be chosen. And we are the people who have been given the task, and we are going to make this happen. When he was impeached the first time, it wasn't even a 50-50 vote. It was 48 in favor of impeaching him for actively having sought to undermine our democracy, with demonstrable proof that he had done this. Less than half of the Senate, like 48 out of 100. This last time, over the insurrection, when they were fucking there. And I think that's why the vote was as high as it was, because they were there and they were embroiled in it and terrified for their lives. He got 57 votes to impeach.
Right. So
Yeah, the
for
Republicans
some,
are. Go ahead.
well, I mean, the point is what? Yeah. So what does that tell us? That this huge number of people in our country no longer value the institutions that have been built up over 250 years. What that they know they only value they don't value they only value them as instrumental towards what's the word for maintaining their power. They don't really see it as that the Constitution allows them to share, allows us to all share together in this amazing experiment that we've done in America, where so many of us and all of us have benefited from an amazing prosperity that's now produced a dramatic inequality. It's like, so what if like, let's say we end up here with just 40% of America think this is just fine. Trump's stealing, Trump's conning, Trump's war, ignoring the courts, he's stopping all aid, I guess, to Africa. I'm not sure how that's all turned out with Doge. Doing all these things that are so harmful. And they go, oh, that's all right. That's okay. 40% of Americans say it's okay. It's a really frightening outcome for America, and I don't have a solution for that. And I don't think impeachment solves it. That's the problem. Like you're saying, if we only get 57 votes for trying to for doing a violent insurrection to overthrow the government from someone who supports it and calls them patriots, and we've got this huge number of American people, it's a tough situation. Unless some greater proportion of that population can be persuaded.
Hold on a second, boss.
To change their minds.
You're breaking up again.
Maybe losing their money will change their minds.
Okay, right now your image is frozen. Can you see me? Am I moving?
I can see you. You're moving.
Wait, hold on. Okay, now you're back. Okay, I'm sorry. You might want to roll back about a minute in that speech. I'm trying to decide when you started breaking up. You were talking about. Okay, so if you can go back and revisit what you said about saying that impeaching him might not fix the problem.
Well, yeah. Let's say by some magic, which I don't think is even possible, or it's possible, but grossly unlikely, we get 60 votes. He's charged in the House of Representatives by a majority vote. It's submitted to the Senate as the trial agency. They conduct a trial, and I think it's very unlikely we would get the 60 votes to convict him. I think that's very unlikely because we still have 40% of the country, or maybe on any day 48%, I don't know, who still who are who don't worry about immoral, illegal, criminal behavior. Will they be worried if they lose their money? If he's grifted enough people, if he grifts, and I think it's more incompetence that he's doing. He's hurting the farmers. It's just like it's running the American economy in a very poor way with tariffs that don't work. And will that, let's say, if enough farmers go bankrupt or lose their economic status, if enough, how else is it harming? If enough people cannot get medical care, if enough people can't buy houses or don't have any place to live, they have to rent even though they have middle class jobs, or will that change? Will the economics change? And right now, the economy is kind of okay, supposedly, for most people. I don't know. I think there's a real dissatisfaction with it, but unemployment is low, and 401ks are high, and people like me are okay financially.
Well, and
So
the problem
what
there
hap-
is that those things are true-ish right at this moment, but they're unsustainable in the way the government is currently doing business, the way the economy is currently rolling. And again, we saw that with the last bubble. When the housing market goes down, it takes a lot of money with it. And people's overall investment packages fold up under that. Money gets withdrawn. Businesses fail. People's retirements disappear. It's not a I mean it's all survivable, but it's not in the same way that the Great Depression wiped out third 40% of our economy. People are going to go on. The question is, what shape are they in when they go on? And we are enabling him to put us in the position to have to find that out.
And do you think that will change people's minds in American democracy? Will that change the vast majority of people who support him? Or will they keep saying he keeps pushing the Christian button, even though he isn't one, the abortion button, even though he's not really doesn't care about abortion, the American exceptionalism button, the America First button, all of these, some of them many contradictory to each other. But if he keeps pushing all those buttons, but we're failing financially, will that change people's minds?
I think it will have the same. I think we're looking at America after the Depression, after FDR. You're looking at 20 years before people can look the mistakes in the face and name them for what they are, so that you can actually start fixing the problem. And then we'll probably have another 20 years of recovery. And then we, depending on how things go, we may very easily find ourselves right back here again, because it really only takes about 2 generations for us to forget the lessons.
Yeah, because people forget the lessons of the Weimar Republic. It's been too long.
It's been
1930s is just too long.
Yeah, and it's not even completely that it's been too long. It's that we don't teach those lessons. The same way we didn't, other side of Civil War, We didn't teach those lessons. We couldn't point and say, these are the people who treasonously undermined our country. Look at them. Look how they're suffering for the mistakes they made. And let's be clear, here are the mistakes they made. Here are the horrible things they did for their own greed. We will just absorb into that the idea that they were fighting for their piece of the economy. Okay, fine. They were doing that, as we still do now, on the backs of a bunch of people who had no choice about their presence in this country. Okay, you run that forward into the Depression. We finally start to, we step right into it. We start to recover from it. And then we step into a social shift. And then we step into Reagan. And so in the same way, it's that same cycle. It's forward. It's here's a problem. We're going to move forward socially, because like after the Civil War, that forward social movement was about a decade, only about 10 years. And then we had 20 years of decline. And then we hit the Depression. And then we come out the other side of the Depression, rapidly winding up. We're improving our circumstance. We hit the war. Things get tight, but we come out the other side of that better than we have ever been. So effectively, we went half of a generation of getting better into a generation of slow collapse, into a generation of slow gain, into a generation of rapid gain, and that rapid gain made us blind to all the shit that came before. And now we're in 2 generations of decline, 2.5 generations of decline, because we don't remember all the stuff we went through to get here, and we don't teach it that way. We teach American exceptionalism. We don't teach events.
We don't want people to feel bad, especially white people.
Feel bad.
White little girls.
And that's, and it's not that it's not true, but I honestly I don't support the idea that it's that we don't want white people to feel bad. It's that conservative people don't like being made to feel bad. They don't want to believe that, because okay, and let's be comparatively fair. Conservative America probably is a major driver of our economy. Their willingness to put their money and their manpower into the basics of moving this country allows us a big piece of being who we are. But that
they're very important folk. Yeah,
they're very important folks. But
they're part of America.
But that does not change that progressive America takes the benefit and the profit of that conservative position and uses it to develop an even better country. Our technological advances, our social advances, our international advances are as much attributable to a conservative base as they are to a need to advance on a progressive level. Because the giant melting pot needs a little bit of everybody. That soup needs a little bit of everybody.
Back to the soup.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't. Yeah, well spoken. That's a good place for us to end on Mitch's wisdom, and I think well spoken. And thank you for joining us on Halo Love and Country. Go watch the movie Love and Country. Go buy the book.
The book is quite good, especially
put
if you've
Mitch
seen
in a movie. This man is an actor. Give him a role. He's good. Bye now.